so interesting. I want you to think about this. Like, look around. So we have classes with diabetes, and it was standing room only. We have classes about cancer, and I had like 300 people there. I have classes about heart disease, and we have like you can't find a seat there, and actually people were complaining that like it was too hot because like our air conditioner couldn't even keep up with it. And then when we started talking about how do we keep our kids healthy, it's like a ghost town. Right? Oh, they're fine, right? But we have to remember is that like those children, they become us as adults. And so when they look at kids that were done on autopsy, they actually find that they're actually finding heart disease in 8-year-olds. When they look at the children that were like the young adults that were in like Iraq and they did autopsies on seemingly healthy adults, they actually had heart disease and kidney failure and kidney issues there. And so our adult problems are not adult problems. They're problems that started in childhood, and now they just finally show their fruition as adults. It's almost like investing. Like you don't like all of a sudden like when you invest money, you don't all of a sudden get your return on your investment, right? Like it's only in retirement that you get that return there. So the same thing that happens with your health is what you invest now as a child is what you get back as an adult there, and that's really what tonight's about. It's heavy on my heart because as I look around, there's so much going on, and there's so much that we don't know. And so that's really my goal right now, is tonight we really have, I actually threw this slide in here right now. So we have 2 options right here. We have door number A and door number B. Door number 1, door number 2. Door number 1, I will just tell you everything that you want to hear, okay? And then door number 2 will tell you everything that you need to hear. So which one do you guys want, A or B? B. Okay, good. Because if door number A, you'll end up like everybody else, which is sick and suffering and tired and exhausted. And you know, like 5 out of 6 people have heart disease or cancer. And if you throw Alzheimer's in there, that's 6 out of 6 people. It's crazy. And so we got to do something dramatically different. That's what tonight's about. So I'm going to rock through some things. And my whole goal tonight is to really expand your consciousness, literally to blow your mind and then give you some tools to be able to use, okay? So big thing is that when I put this, I started doing my first healthy class about 5 years ago. This is 2010, and basically it was the first time that they said children aren't going to outlive their parents. It's the first time we've actually seen a decline in actually lifespan. We started off with our Gen Xers, now we're in our Alpha generation. Alpha generation is their lifespan is actually 5 years shorter than their parents is expected to be currently right now. And that's with all this increase in healthcare and our technology that we have. So we do our very best, and we're expected to only live 5 years less there. And so where do we go from here? Well, yeah, they said it started with obesity, and we're going to start tying some of these, and I want you to start looking as I talk tonight. We're going to be connecting all kinds of dots, okay? So just kind of pay attention as we go through here. So the big thing that I want you to understand is that it's about the children. So vulnerable children become vulnerable adults. And so what does our future look like? We have a 123% increase in juvenile diabetes, increase in heart disease. 1 in 10 children now have asthma. You know, number 1 cause of death in children right now is actually cancer, and that's gone up from accidents. So like it used to be an accident was the number 1 cause. Now it's cancer. We look at ADD, ADHD, food allergies. 1 in 13 children has food allergies. Like literally we're allergic to food now. There's got to be something that's going on in our lives there. 1 in 6 children now actually have a developmental disability. I want you to hear that. So 1 in 6 children have a developmental disability. What does that look like for our country in 30, 40 years right now? With 1 in 6 of our adults having a developmental disability. We're in a crisis. We're in a crisis, and the problem is we just don't know it. And so we have to do something about that. So our solution right now is, well, we just kind of keep doing what we've always done, and when we start looking at the incidence of serious drug reactions, because that's how we treat the symptoms, it's over 2 million a year. They're not my stats, that's just the stats that are out there. We have 106,000 people a year die just from adverse drug reactions in hospitals. It's the 4th leading cause of death. But when you go to your doctor and there's a problem, what's the thing that he gives you? Right. So if he was to say, you know, there's a possibility that this could be the 4th leading cause of death, but we're going to try to make you healthy with it, like either that makes sense to you or it starts to make you ask different questions. So when we start looking at the statistics, this is from the Starfield study, and you look at these, 30% of patients receive a contraindicated medical care. So you got a 1 in 3 chance every time you go to your doctor to get healthy, you have health care that's contraindicated. 98% of patients, 98,000 die a year as a result of errors. This is our healthcare system, and they estimate that it's, if you look at these stats, it's about 225,000 people a year, and they estimate that that number is underreported by 1 in 10. That's crazy stats there.
What's contraindicated?
Contra meaning that you shouldn't do it. Yeah, that you shouldn't do it there. And so then when we come into in 2009, this is almost 10 years ago, we basically said U.S. healthcare system, the benefits in it just don't outweigh the combined harm that it actually causes. This isn't an opinion, and you'll find that I don't do opinions. This is in the Journal of the American Medical Association. They said our healthcare system, the benefits does not outweigh the harm that we actually cause in the process. That's mind-boggling. That's mind-boggling. We start looking, no doubt that there's a lot of things that are effective, but the net health harm caused by our healthcare system is actually greater than the results. And the evidence is about 1/3 of all of our spending, it's for things that don't do anything. So we have $3.7 trillion, and 1/3 of it doesn't do anything. There's no benefit to it there. And the average family now spends more of its disposable income on healthcare than anything else. Those are crazy stats. And where do we go with it? The possibilities that healthcare might cause increasingly important. And this is the study they said if we got rid of the healthcare system, the number of people that would die and the number of people that would live would essentially be the same. So my goal is to have you start asking questions, because if this is the ship that's sinking, that we're putting all of our efforts to be healthy in, and they've created the system and they've created the healthcare of our society where 1 in 6 children has a developmental disability. Like when we have 75 million people that have diabetes and half the population has heart disease and 2 out of 3 people are going to have cancer. Like that was on their watch. Something has to change there. So when we really look, there's a book, and if you have nothing else to do with your life, this is a good book. But what they did in World War II in Borneo, what they found was that there was an abundance of rats. And the soldiers were complaining about all these rats there. And so what do you do when you have a lot of rats? Cats, right? So somebody had a lot of money, and so what they did is they got a whole bunch of stray cats, and they put parachutes on the stray cats, and they parachuted them into Borneo. Makes sense, right? You got a rat problem, and then you just parachute cats in there, and then that's what happens. And then the rats the cats actually ate the rats, which is great, and so then there was less rats, but then what they forgot was that what the rats were eating was these little organisms that would actually that would actually eat the huts that the people were living in. So then the huts actually started collapsing on people, and people started getting caught in their fires in the huts. But not only that, once the rats disappeared, the cats had nothing to eat. And so the cats started going out into the environment and eating all the small birds, and they completely decimated the ecosystem. They completely decimated the ecosystem, and it's never fully recovered since then. And that's what we call unintended consequences. We don't know the unintended consequences of our action. If our goal or if our objective was to kill the rats, we were successful. But if it was to completely destroy the ecosystem of Borneo, well, we were also successful too. And so you have to understand it's about what your objective is there. And so I'm going to take you through a quick story. And this is the average person out there, okay? And we're going to fly through this. But what I need you to understand is your grandparents, what they ate, what they thought, what stresses that they were exposed to, it changed their DNA. And the studies show that the things that you are exposed to right now will affect the next 4 generations of your family. So when you go to eat something, when you're under stress, when you leave an unhealthy lifestyle, it'll change your genes, which will change your children's genes, which will change your children's children's genes, which will change their genes there. And so what I want you to think about is where we are today, our kids today are not what's happening. We're like, hey, my kids have a great lifestyle, they eat good. Well, what was happening with your parents? What was happening with your grandparents? What was happening with your great-grandparents? And then we start looking that with the mom ate, they found that with the unhealthy diet during pregnancy is going to have a long-term irreversible health impact there. And they find that the changes that the mom did or did not do will have a dramatic impact not just on the birth weight of the child, but on them for the rest of their life. And it'll affect how they metabolize food, how they adapt to stress there. It'll actually affect not only but a lot of times dads think, well, it's all the mom's fault. No, it's not. What they find now, just recently, that for the first time, they actually found the lifestyle. If a dad smoked, if if the dad was under stress, if the dad drank a lot of alcohol, if he had a bad diet, it'll actually change his sperm, which will actually change the DNA of the child and have a dramatic impact on that child. And as we start coming back through here, people are like, well, it's all about the genes. You know, my mom was fat, my dad was fat. You know, I have bad genes in my family. That's not true. When Dean Ornish did his study, all he did for 3 months was change people's diets. And he studied 23,000 genes, and within 3 months, people were able to turn on 48 genes that were actually had a positive health impact on their life, and they're able to turn off 453 genes. Literally within 3 months, he was able to change over 500 genes, how the genes express themselves. You are not your genes, you're how your genes express themselves. And if you can understand that, and we're going to tie this in later, but your genes express themselves based on the environment that they find themselves in. If they're in a toxic, stressful environment, you're going to express toxic, stressful genes. If you're in a healthy environment, you're going to express healthy genes there. Even Norm Shirley, one of the things that he ended up doing was that he actually had the same type of thing. And on your cells, a lot of people say, well, my cells, you know, I'm just concerned about my cells mutating. Well, you have something. Everything has already been pre-thought out in your body. And you have at the end of every DNA strand something called a telomere. And it keeps your cells from like unraveling and mutating there. And what ends up happening is that when that telomere shortens and eventually disappears, that's when your cells go through pre-programmed cell death. So what ends up happening is the telomere is the greatest indicator of how long you're going to live your life. How cool is that? What he did is after 3 months, he found that their telomeres stopped getting shorter. What that means is just by changing their diet, they stopped aging. The rate at which their cells were aging stopped. And within 10 months of changing it, they actually found out that the telomeres actually got 3% longer. Literally, they increased their lifespan, the length of their life, within 10 months. So a lot of times we're like, you know, it's just too late for me. No, it's never too late for you. What's too late is what are you going to wish that you did in 20 years ago? I mean, in 20 years from now. Like, what are you doing today that you, in 20 years from now, you wish you had done? And if we can just, within 10 months, we can stop the aging process and actually reverse it, the power's in your hands. We can stop having that power taken out. So what are the 3 things that I always say to everybody every day? Please tell me. Here's a cheat sheet right here. One of them is omega-3s. Second one is vitamin D. And the third one is probiotics. Those are essential things. They're just things that we can't get anymore. We don't get the right bacteria in our intestines. We don't get enough vitamin D every single day. And we don't get omega-3s because so much of our diet is processed that we get an inverse ratio. In fact, at one of our classes recently I talked about, they said that Alzheimer's disease is they're expecting by 2040, 1 in 2 people at the age of 65 aren't going to know their own name. That's crazy. Right now it's 1 in 2 at 85. It's 3 out of 10 at 75. It's 3 out of 100 at 60. But by 2040, 1 in 2. And what they do know is if you have like the proper ratio of omega-3s, your odds go down over 600%. That's 6-fold of actually getting Alzheimer's disease. How simple is that? Like we don't have diseases, we create diseases. And if we can understand that we create our diseases, then we can actually fix the diseases before we get them there. And so omega-6s come from packaged foods, they come from processed foods, they come from the brown foods that we eat there. Like anything, when it's live, it's fresh, we don't get those our omega-6s. So we really have to look at those foods that we're eating. But then the challenge is that when we look at our toxicity, it starts before we're even born. So when a mother gets, now they want to give the mothers flu shots, and if you look at the flu shots just before they're born, they're trying to give the baby immunity, but in our head it makes sense, but on paper it doesn't. Because what we start to find out is when the mothers receive their flu shots, it's 250 times the level of mercury that goes into that baby's body there. Mercury is a neurotoxin, and we do things to prevent brain damage before our child. We eat right, we exercise, we take our vitamins, and then we inject a neurotoxin just before that baby's born. And the thing is that during the birthing process, 1 in 6 women have higher levels of mercury because your body's breaking down the bones where everything stays. And when they look at the cord blood of newborns, the cord blood of newborns, the mercury in there is 70% higher than it is in the mother. Meaning that it consolidates everything. It goes right into that baby there. So then this is the 1 in 2 children that are born. And then what happens is at the birth time, we're starting to look at that 80%, when somebody gets a scheduled birth, they give they'll start giving them the medication to start the birthing process, which seems great, but then 75% of all inductions put the mother at risk, and then what ends up happening, it increases our rate of C-section. Well, what happens with C-section? Right now in the United States, 32% of all births, and I want you to start thinking the average child that's being born right now, 32% of all births are C-section now. The World Health Organization says that no country is justified by having more than 10 to 15%. We are double what the World Health Organization says that no country is justified. And yes, it's just common. And we have to do it because it's an emergency, but half of all births are induced now, and we set this downward spiral going in there. And then what happens is that we take the baby away, right? Right afterwards, we take the baby away, don't get a chance to nuzzle. And when we start, this is just rats. And when they look at rats, and I want you to think about, rats have brains, they have the same thing. We can't do the same experiment on kids. But what we see is when the rat mothers, when they actually nurtured their children, when they had a close relationship with their children, what they found is that it actually activated the part of the child's brain that reduced stress. It actually turned off the genes, the stress genes. Well, that's just beautiful. And rats nurtured by their mothers had a much better ability to handle stress as an adult. So what I want you to start thinking about is how is a mother right after surgery able to nurture her child as well? We start this vicious downward spiral. And then what we start to find is that now these children are exposed more to stress, and they're all stressed out. They've been toxic from the day they're born. We build. And then when they study adults, they find that traumatic emotional events leads to serious disease as we start developing. One of the most traumatic events that we can have is the birthing process. The second most is being separated from our mom. And then a lot of times we'll find the moms can't produce the same amount of milk, all these different stresses. But then you start to see the same things that we're dealing with now. They have higher rates of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, hepatitis, obesity, bone fractures, and other conditions. Over 30 times as likely to attempt suicide because they don't have that connection there. And then we assist nature. Because if we try to do it one way, because then we have to assist nature, and what we find out, the forceps, well, the Gutman did a study, and he found that 80% of children during the birthing process, they actually have damage to their upper cervical spine. 80% of children, because it's like pulling a bowling ball, 60 pounds of pull force pressure is used, and if we use forceps or vacuum, it's 90 pounds of pull force pressure. Meaning that, like, if I was to hang a child upside down with a 90-pound weight, you'd be like, that's ridiculous, but that's the birthing process. We're pushing bowling balls uphill. And then as we start to look at this process, now by the time they're born and they look at the cord blood of a child, it's 287 known chemical industrial contaminants that's in the average child's cord blood on the day that they're born. My child's healthy. They're not. Does that make sense? Like, we have things that have been happening for generations, and just because of the world that we live in, it's so far from normal now, we have to have a sense of hypervigilance. And I'm not trying to scare somebody, I'm just trying to make you aware. There's a difference between scare and being aware. Because if you're aware, then you can do something about it. If you're scared, then you put your head under the covers and you pretend it doesn't exist. Then the first thing that we do is we have the hepatitis B. What we start to find is, yes, 1% chance under the age of 10 that you'll actually contract hepatitis B. Almost, I think it's like 95% of the time, like you don't even know that you have it there. Once again, our outcome and our effect are very different because these are the health problems associated with the hepatitis B shot. And why do we give a child a blood-borne path, like a vaccine that is primarily used for like IV drug use or unprotected sex within the first day of them being born? It's because it's the only time that we can fit it into the vaccine schedule because it's so full now. You have to understand the insanity of where our kids are coming from there. And these are some of the effects of it. Yeah, we prevent something that's 1% of 1% of 1%, but you can have these things too. And then the problem is that we go to formulas. And then formulas, we start seeing the hormonal issues, the thyroid disruptions there. The formulas prevent the absorption of like vital vitamins and minerals going into the body there. And then we wonder why our kids are sick. And we have ear infections. They're just your normal ear infections. Every kid gets ear infections. And so the first thing that we do is many times we take them to the doctor. He looks in there and he says, you have an ear infection. Well, what do we do about it? Well, it's a bacteria, so let's kill it with the antibiotic and that should be fine. Well, the question is why is it in one ear and not in the other ear? Right? I wonder why would it just be in one ear there? And why can't my body fight that infection? What we do know is that you have an 80% chance, statistically, that the body will actually fight that infection and get rid of that infection, and it'll actually heal itself. There's a power in your body. The power in your body heals your body every single time. Now, the challenge that we're starting to see, though, is that if 92 would, when this was what's the Journal of Pediatrics, they actually created what the WASP protocol is, and it basically says wait and see. Pretty much wait and see. And what they found, if they didn't wait and see, 5 out of 10 kids would actually get side effects from those antibiotics there. And but when we started looking at the kids that were given antibiotics, they would be more likely to be obese because it would damage their gut and be more likely to be obese in lifetime. And so when we found that in the first 4 weeks of life, they grew up 25% heavier. Like their children even grow heavier there. So then we have obesity. Now we're creating we're setting the average child, if they've had antibiotics within the first couple of weeks of their life, we set them up for obesity, we set them up for other future health problems, we set them up for hormonal problems, and then now we find that 70% have at least one risk for cardiovascular disease. We double the risk of obesity in these children. And then these are the other problems. These are all adult problems. Do you see this? And adult problems don't start in adulthood. Adult problems start in childhood. Every single bite of food that we take, every single toxin that we take into our body, everything builds on that. And then we say it's our genes. Well, the problem is if it was our genes and they looked at identical twins would die at the same time. Does that make sense? It's their genes. They're the exact same genes. It's not the case. Identical twins typically die at least 10 years apart on average. That's crazy. So how can it be our genes that are determining our health rather than our life and our lifestyle that determines our life there? And so when they look at mice, what they find is they take these mice that are designed, they're genetically designed to be fat. They're genetically designed to be obese, and they're genetically designed, they use them to study heart disease and cancer. And what they find is that if by changing what they eat, they fed the pregnant mice a diet rich in a different type of food, it actually changed how they ate, what they ate, and what they expressed. This is the mother, what they're supposed to look like, this is the child. And not only that, but the color of they're always the same color, and they actually change the color just by changing what that mouse ate. And guess what? This mouse's children actually didn't become obese, even though for hundreds of generations before that child was obese. So really what it comes down to is this, is that you are not your genes. You are the environment that your genes is set in. We're already one step behind because the problems that we're facing right now are generational issues there. The things that we're doing to try to keep us healthy are things that are actually damaging us in the long run there. Think we're doing the right thing because we're trying to stay healthy, but there is consequences for every action. It's like cats in Borneo. We kill the rats, but the rats end up, the cats have to do something else there. So the second thing is omegas. We talk about vitamin D. And the reason why I love that, if we're going to allow our genes to express themselves, your genes can never express themselves properly because there's over 2,700 receptor sites on your DNA to turn your DNA on or off with vitamin D. If your vitamin D levels are low, you're below what we call the 65 range, that's your cancer zone. That's where cancers don't occur below 65. They occur below 65, not above 65 there. Vitamin D status, basically, in the Vitamin D Council said, is potentially one of the most powerful selective pressures on your genes in recent times that we found out. But one of the things that is a greater determiner of your genetic expression of yourself and your children right now is your vitamin D levels. So what does it look like? Who needs vitamin D? Kids that are working, adults that are working, you're inside all day, you're driving all day as moms, in the car, you're not out in the sun there. How about kids that are sitting there playing video games on the computer in school all day long? If you look at lack of vitamin D increases infection, so if you have repetitive, like infections and colds and flus, you're pretty much guaranteed your vitamin D levels are going to be low. And so we got to make sure this is symptoms of vitamin D deficiency. These are crazy things there. When we look at this, we're like, what? And they found that if people took vitamin D and the entire population of the country was sufficient in vitamin D, that we would find that we could reduce cancer rates statistically by 70%. Where's that in the media? Where's that in the news? When was the last time your doctor told you that? Oh, you want to reduce cancer by 70%? Take your vitamin D. But that's what the studies show. So the problem is that we try to fight the body. We're afraid of the body. We think the body's dumb. And what I want to remind you, and that's the purpose of this slide, when we have a fever, what your body's trying to do is when it raises the temperature, it kills bacteria 65%, I mean 64 times faster than like an antibiotic would. How cool is that? Like that's already programmed. You're 65 4 times better than the best antibiotic out there. When we raise that up, the immune cells are produced, and it eliminates. When we try to get rid of the symptom of diarrhea or coughing or sneezing. That's all your body's trying to do is eliminate. So we try to kill our body's immune system or suppress it when we have a cold, but your body's perfectly designed to be able to do that. Our job today is about restoring and rebuilding. So really, this is a tough one I'm going to show you, and I want you guys to pay attention to this. There's how we lower a fever is we use like acetaminophen or aspirin. It has to shut down your brain stem, which controls all of your basic life support systems in your body. You actually literally have to control your nervous system through a chemical to lower your temperature there. Now, here's the thing. Has anybody ever heard of Stevens-Johnson syndrome? I had a patient that, she's at Santa Clara University. Her back was hurting, couldn't make it in. It was just too hard today. Took an ibuprofen, and Stevens-Johnson syndrome causes a melting of the skin. 3rd-degree burns all over her whole body, in ICU for months. I mean, for weeks there. Scars all over her entire body. And it happens in children, and it happens randomly. You just don't know. I would look it up. If you think that it's just a small ibuprofen, it's just a small painkiller. There's something like 26,000 cases a year in the United States there. That's way more than whooping cough, polio, and every other thing that we vaccinate everybody for in this entire country combined. But the other thing that we look at is stress. And this is a big thing. We forget about kids in school. Like right now, and in a second I'm going to be talking about digital dementia. But right now, they estimate that the amount of information that the average person takes in on a daily basis, just in one day, is equal to that of what the average person in the 1400s took in their entire lifetime. Think about that. We take more information in a daily basis than the average person in the 1400s took in their entire lifetime there. And so we think that, well, our kids are just taking their normal test. No, they're doing something that our predecessors, our ancestors couldn't even comprehend doing there. And so when they even look at kids, like people that were taking their medical exams there, they actually found that their genetic switches have been tripped. They've been locked on for stress just at the same while they were doing those, taking their exams there. The stress will flip a stress gene. So when we start looking, basically it's about the mine shaft. They used to put canaries in the mine shaft just to know if there's a problem. These are the canaries. In 97, we had 97% of children were healthy in the 60s. We look down here, 50% of children have at least one chronic disease. The canaries are dying in the mine shaft there. And we got to do something different. We got to protect our kids because our kids become our future adults there. And the stress is real. The stress is real. There's 3 types of stresses: emotional stress, physical stress, chemical stress. Basically, 75 to 90% of all visits to doctor are for health stress-related disorders. Whether we think that they are or they're not, they are. And so when we start looking at how this happens, the number one thing that I'm seeing now is what we call emotionally induced stresses. So emotional stress, or emotionally induced subluxations, and that's the term that we use for a misalignment of the spine interfering with the brain, communicating with the body, and the body being able to heal, repair, and regenerate. Emotionally induced stresses, think about your dad's coming home and you were in trouble because you broke something. Your mom's like, you wait till your dad gets home, right? You're not sitting there totally relaxed. What we find is that the muscles will tighten up in regards to the stress response. You have 500 receptors in the muscles of your spine. You have 50 receptors in the muscles of your quads. So think about when you're under stress and you're in that ready state, the muscles of your spine are will actually tense up and pull and twist and shift that spine and change into a stress posture and lock us into that position. That's the number one subluxation causer that I'm seeing these days is emotionally induced stressors. And what it does is that once we're locked into that position, it triggers the fight or flight response, and now that person's in a locked-in stress response there. Problem is, like I was saying, the subluxations they're the third. There's 3 types of stresses: emotional, physical, and chemical. These are the ones that I'm seeing right now, and then what we call it, they're sympathetically induced subluxation patterns. their lifestyle, their stress related. And the problem is that what used to happen is that we go like this. We go out, we're like hunting and walking, and all of a sudden you see a bear and you're like, bear, right? And what would you do? Run. Or you could eat one of the two, right? Either way, it's over. Like nobody is like bear, bear, bear for day and night. But we have like projects. We have projects that last months and years at a time. We have carpools. Like my wife, from the day that she started having kids, she was stressed out because she's driving carpool and trying to balance everything out and doing laundry and all these different things. Like it just doesn't end, right? It just keeps going and going and going. It's like bear, bear, bear. From the moment that you wake up, you're like, oh my gosh, lunches and this and that. What do you mean you fell down? What do you mean you fell down again? Why did you hit your brother on the head? Like that stuff doesn't end. And so when we end up like the number one thing I'm seeing in moms is these emotionally induced subluxation patterns. So that's why the thing that I need you guys to remember is tonight is we have the kids separated from the adults because we want to make sure that we are putting our mask on first. We are no good for anybody else unless we take care of ourselves. And what's really important, I had a grandma that was here, and she just was celebrating that she lost like 11 pounds. She's the lightest that she's been in like 30 years. And I said, when are we going to get your son on the same program? She's like, he just won't listen. And I'm like, he won't listen, but if he's already overweight, and he's already doing certain things that are contradicted to like good health, well, the problem is this, is that what happens to him, if something happens to him, who's going to have to take responsibility for his bad choices? His grandma. The family, who's going to take care of his family there? They just said, somebody just passed away the other day. Like, who's taking care of the family? Like, we don't have to pay for our bad choices. Everybody else that's left behind has to take responsibility. So when I look at when we do bad things in our lives to our bodies, it's just plain selfish. It's just plain selfish because we're not going to have to take responsibilities for those things. So the big thing is, what's the first step? Number one, 98% of your atoms in your body aren't going to be here in a year from now. How cool is that? So if you think that like you want to make a change, this is a good time because next year, like 98% of you is not going to be in there. And where do those atoms come from? The foods that we eat, right? That's basically where the building blocks of the foods that we eat, of who you're going to be next year at this time, comes from what you put into your mouth at that time. And so when we're looking at, are we going to build our kids' brains on donuts and ice cream bars? Are we going to build it on Mickey D's and French fries there? Because basically what we know is one thing. Number one, sugar causes disease. If a large portion of our children's diet is sugar, there is not a question if they're going to have disease, it's when they're going to have it. And probably it's going to happen when they're older, and you're going to think, oh my gosh, they just got sick. They just got heart disease. They just have high blood pressure there. But the foods, in a lot of the foods, and this is why we're doing the shopping, because they're in the things that you don't think. Fruit juices there, and lunch meats, and ketchups. All these things move on there because, think about the Kraft Lunchables. Like, think about, it's these the types of atoms that you want to build, because for the most part, like, I can't even pronounce a lot of these things, and I actually took biochemistry and advanced chemistry. Like I can't even say half of that, and that's what goes into our kids. Or how about a strawberry milkshake from Burger King, like my best friends, right? Like, this isn't even a milkshake. There's no milk, and there's no shake in there. It's just all chemicals there. But that's what we're building. Oh, I want to just give my son a treat. He deserves it. He was really smart today, so we're going to put all these things in there that actually destroy their brain for him being so smart. You guys see the problem with that? So where are the strawberries and milkshakes? So really, here's what I need you to understand as we come down through this process. As we're going, we have to make decisions of everything that we're doing, whether it's moving us to our life's process or a purpose or moving it away. And so what we eat will impact how we feel. Can anybody remember when they've had something bad, they just don't feel good afterwards? Everything that we eat will have an impact on how we feel. How we feel impacts how we think. And what you eat impacts how you think. So if our kids are having issues with, thinking problems, if you're having problems with thinking problems, we really have to take a look at how you think. And I threw this in here because every food has a frequency. And like I said, today we're going to be flying through some stuff, but what I really wanted to do is give you questions. Every food has a frequency, and when they look at the frequency, like a Big Mac is at 3 megahertz. Typically they find that when people are at about 10 megahertz, they're dead. Okay? When we look at people that are healthy, they're like 90 to 150. So French fries and chips are at 30 megahertz. Let's go down here and look at what's down here. Oh, cancer is at 30 megahertz. So literally, you're bringing your frequency of your body down, because literally all we are is vibration, and all we are is energy. They literally bringing the energy in your body down to the energy of particular diseases here. We look at a minimum of 70 for a healthy body there. What about like super greens and from like whole wheat, like wheat grasses? They're at 150 megahertz. Imagine if you like had a green drink every single day. Like that would totally change the character of the frequency of your body. And do you think if you had green drinks on a regular basis, you probably feel better, and you probably think better, and you probably make better decisions there? So what I really want you to see though is this, and this is a mung bean. Now I know you guys are going to go like buy a whole bunch of mung beans at the store. Okay, I'm not encouraging mung bean usage, but what I wanted you to see, this is a mung bean. This is through Carillion photography, and what they do is they take use a special camera to actually look at the energy. You can actually see energy fields because everything is a field. This is a mung bean before it's cooked. This is a mung bean after it's cooked. You can actually see the energy, like the field actually goes down even when we cook our food. So much of our food is cooked. So much of it's in this range right over here, and we wonder why we're feeling tired, sick, and we're dying early. It's just because of what we're putting into our body there. And so we have to make different choices. That's what the advanced plan's about. That's what the removing toxins from our body's about. We have all the videos online. I have all the resources available for you guys. But the really thing is, this is what a simple maximized kids meal could look like. Imagine starting up in the morning with instead of like milk, but like almond milk or coconut milk, which has really good fat. Throw in some blueberries and strawberries, which have antioxidants in there. You can even throw in some Marathon or raw almond butter. And next thing you know, you have like a peanut butter smoothie for breakfast. How cool is that? Vanilla whey powder there. You blend it, boom. Next thing you know, you have an antioxidant. Good healthy proteins, no toxins in there, good fats in there for the brain to be able to work. Then at lunchtime, we have like some raw almond butter and jelly sandwich on Ezekiel bread, which is a sprouted bread there, with some apple slices there. All of a sudden, the frequency of the food that's going up is going into them, and they have way more energy. They're able to think clearer. They're able to have less stresses. And then for the snacks, we have ants on a log, like celery and almond butter and raisins there. Like, it might take a little bit more effort, but the question is our kids worth it? Like, sometimes we get going so fast, we're like, I just don't have time. No, everybody has time. It's your priorities that you have to look at. What is your priority in your life? You have to look at, is your health your priority? Because we put work before our health all the time. We put everything else before our health, and it's only when we lose it that we start to prioritize it. We really have to look at where our priorities are there. We're going to teach you how to make some of these meals there. But this is a big one for me, because what's starting to happen right now on epidemic proportions is not only in children, not only in teenagers, not only in college students, but now like in adults, we've all the people are like, I'm ADD, right? I'm ADD, and the problem is that we are not designed to multitask in the way that we do in this day and age. What they find is that when somebody multitasks, their efficiency goes down by over 40%. We're not designed to have constant interruptions of Facebook notifications coming in on our laptop, with like text messages coming in there, Instagram, like people saying that they added you while you're trying to get a report done there. With your phone going off and somebody calling you, and then you have a FaceTime going off in the background there. Like, that's not how our brains were designed to work. Our brains were designed to work on one thing at a time, and then the problem that happens is that all that stimulation actually burns out neurons. It destroys the neurons there, and we become fragmented, and we call this ADD, but this is a disease of today. This is something that we create with the foods that we eat and the stimulation that we have there. Some of the symptoms of ADD is often difficult playing or engaging in leisure activities quietly. Do we train our kids to go outside, or they spend all the time inside now? Like, they don't walk down the street to their neighbor's house anymore. They don't get on their bicycle and go for a ride to hang out at the baseball field there. Run around and climb excessively in situations. Well, here's the thing: is that we're so stressed out, we almost don't have time to be able to put into our kids there. Yeah, is there some cases where there's something going on there? Yes, but not at the epidemic levels. And what we find is that the only challenges we find is that the only solution that we have, once again, is medication. And what they find, literally, the medication melts the brain. It literally melts the brain. It raises dopamine levels to allow that person to be able to focus. But then the brain actually stops paying attention to the dopamine. It becomes immune, just like diabetes becomes, like the receptors become dead. to insulin. The same thing happens in the brain. So then you have to have more and more. And literally now, when you have more and more, then you have to take a medication to be able to lower the to be able to go to sleep at night, because it's an amphetamine there. And so literally a child living on amphetamines, the risk of heart disease goes up, and actually sudden cardiac death goes up just from taking these medications. It's crazy stuff, and we can change it just by getting the omega-3s up, right? Getting getting sleep at night, getting their nutrition right, getting their nervous system handled there. Because what happens is that we don't eat anything bad when the child's at like this, because we're like, you say it'll damage their brain. When a child's like this, as they're growing there, eventually that brain's going to weigh 2 to 3 pounds. But look what it does, is it actually burns 30% of the body's calories. So 30% of the food that you take into your body goes directly towards powering your brain. So if you have a low frequency food, if you're eating Big Macs all the time, is there any way that your brain's actually going to be able to function right? It's not. And that's the challenge that we have to really look at. Everything matters as we're going through. I'm going to run through a couple things that I really, really felt like I needed to show you, though. And what we start to look at is we know the brain is like powerful, but what we have to do is look at how it powers the body. And really, it's like a hose. Really, you can't keep the hose. And so normally, you're going to have your spine with a nice curve, no pressure on the spinal cord. As we lose that curve, it's going to put pressure on the spinal cord. The longer that it's like it, the more damage. The more damage, the less flow that happens there. Now look what happens when we're on our phones, right? Children are forward like this. Look what's happening. There's a normal neck, and here's a picture of an x-ray of somebody on their phone, and they're down in that position. Think about what's happening to the flow from the brain to the body in that position. And how long did they spend on that? The average child is starting at 1 year old being able to unlock their mom's phone, right? They have their own iPads by 2. They get it for their 2nd birthday. And by the time that they're, at 5 years old, they have their own phones because it's their parents' old phone that's just not hooked up, and they're glued into watching videos on YouTube. Well, what we start to find is this, and I don't know if you can see this, but I want you to look at this. You see this black stuff coming right here? Look, boom, boom, boom. That's cerebral spinal fluid in a spine that has a correct curve. Cerebral spinal fluid is the fluid that gives nutrients and nutrition to the spine and the nerve to your nervous system there. This is somebody with actually a reversal of the curve there, and you can see that it'll go black. It'll go black in a second, boom, but it doesn't even make it down. Literally, you're starving your spinal cord when you're in this position there. Literally, your children are destroying their nervous systems and their brain because not only can that fluid not get back down, but it can't get back up. And we wonder why, even though we have this toxic onslaught, that our bodies can't repair and regenerate because of the conditions of our spine and our nervous system. And in fact, what they find is that when we have our spines in this position, what it does is it actually suffocates the brain, because now the brain, this is a brain with a normal neck, and you can actually see how the pattern of that brain there. And you can see when this is the redder it is, the more metabolic activity is there. This is a spine with a subluxated neck. And you can actually see the amount of activity in the brain goes down because the information can't get up. Your brain doesn't do anything by itself. It's a stimulus response organism. Like, you have to stimulate it for it to respond. So if we're subluxated, all the information in the outside world can't get up to that brain. And the number one problem we're having is this, and we're having like this when we're watching TV in bed, or sitting on the couch, or we're like this when we're like on our video games there. The cool thing is what we find is that these patterns right here, these are called brain, these are EEGs where they're looking at brain function. And what they found, and it's hard to see here, this is no brain function, this is post-adjustment. This is barely any brain function, this is balanced adjustment. What they find is that they estimated that when the researchers studied it, they said it was 35 sessions of biofeedback that it would take an average person to have the changes in their brain that one adjustment gave them. And the best part was when somebody had normal brain waves there, and you adjusted them, the brain waves didn't change. So it's only when there's abnormal patterns that it restores to normal. You can't make something more normal. Does that make sense? So that's the power of your body. When you're not parachuting cats into Borneo, you don't have to try to fix things. Does that make sense? Like, we're trying to spend all of our time fixing things, and this is a big one. Because we want to spend time with our kids, right? Well, the number of minutes that the average parent spends in meaningful conversation with their kids per week is about 210 minutes. That's like the average. That means that some people spend more, And some people spend less. That's meaningful, not like go clean your room. This is like, how was your day? Tell me about things. The average number of minutes a week the average child watches television is about 28 hours then. So think about who's raising your children right now. Who's teaching your children what to eat? Who's teaching your children how to think? Who's teaching your children what's right and what's wrong? If the TV's spending more time with them, teaching them than us, what are the consequences there? They're going to end up like everybody else there. Percentage of 4 to 6-year-olds, that over 50% of children prefer to spend time watching TV than hanging out with their dad. That's sad. That's really sad there. And then this one just blew me away. If we average 4 hours of TV each day, 2 months of that means that we have 2 months of the year of nonstop television watching for each child. That's crazy. Think about that. The average child literally watches 2 months of television a year. In a 65-year lifespan, that means that the average person will be glued to the TV for 9 years, and they wonder where their life went. Literally 9 years of their life by the time we're 65. And all that's doing is stimulating and damaging our brains. And so what happens is now we're in this digital dementia state. And they're finding that children now actually have dementia. Dementia that used to be for adults, that used to be for old people. Now our children, 16 to 18-year-olds, are actually developing dementia. And what we start to find is what we start to find is this overstimulation of the frontal lobe. They start having reading issues. They just can't read anymore. Literally, they can't physically take a book, and their eyes cannot process what is happening in a book. You're like, why aren't they as motivated as we were? Like, you should be doing things. The parts of our brain that's for motivation, the dopamine, they don't have to be motivated anymore because they're getting dopamine stimulation, which is your satisfaction hormone. Like that's why you go to do something. You're like, I want to be great at it so I can get that stimulation there. Problem solving, memory, and movement issues. We start looking at the understimulation, like we start to lose problems with posture and pain reduction. So we have this chronic state of chronic pain throughout our whole body there. We lose coordination, we lose balance. All these things are signs of digital dementia from the age that we live in there. What do? First thing that I'm going to suggest that you guys do is live your life on airplane mode. And what I mean by that is there's got to be a time where you switch off. You just have to switch off because you have to remember it's actually doing damage to your brain. So you actually have to let your brain have a chance to heal there. And so like in our house, like basically Sundays, it's just the tech-free day. Like, I'll turn my phone on. There's 2 times a day that I'll check my phone to check on you. If like somebody calls me on Sunday, but other than that, like you're not going to be able to get a hold of me and you're not going to FaceTime me or anything like that. But then the other thing that we have to look at is like what time do we shut it off? We literally find that we have to shut off the technology at certain times because our brain won't be able to actually relax and go to sleep. You have to think of the absence of technology actually allows your brain to heal and to be ready for the next day there. Our brains, we have to understand, are not ready for this, and they're not designed to be able to be exposed to this. So the cool thing is chiropractic adjustments activate the brain because the first thing that happens is that brain needs to have the proper type of stimulation. All the stimulation's coming in here, it needs to come up from the body to be able to balance with the coordination. When we actually have balance in the cerebellum, it actually balances out the prefrontal cortex, which is the part that we have lack of motivation, lack of coordination, lack of, not coordination, but the ability to read. It actually coordinates our ability for the front part of our brain to be able to work there. But the even better thing is exercise will optimize the brain function. Challenge is, the average 18-year-old right now actually exercises as much as the average 60-year-old in this country. They have the same fitness level as the average 60-year-old in this country here. So where are those 18-year-olds going to be at 60? They're going to be the generation that doesn't outlive their parents. And that's what I'm talking to you about. Exercise, when we start looking at depression, there's never been a medication that's ever beat exercise in any study for being healthy there. And when they look at, researchers, when they look at patients who suffered from major depressive, all they had to do is exercise 3 times a week, and they just destroyed Zoloft in the study. Like, Zoloft couldn't even keep up with it. And it took millions and millions of dollars to be able to develop it and to market it, but all you had to do is step outside your house and move to be happy. But here's the other thing that's really important, and I'll always come into vaccines. Your choice on vaccines is totally up to you, but I always like to ask questions. Why? And the big thing is somebody will say, well, my kids have been vaccinated and they're fine. They've had their 82 vaccines and 16, 18 types. That would be, and they're healthy. That would be like you saying, well, my kids eat McDonald's and sugary and snacks, and they're rarely sick. But the question is, are they healthy? That's the question you're going to have to ask yourself. Are we trying to build health? Or are we trying to build less sickness? And that's got to be your health plan. Because if you're trying to build less sickness, well, then you just have to go through like trying to suppress the symptoms until you feel better. If you're trying to do health, you're going to have to do something radically different. If you do something radically different, the statistics don't apply to you. And so when we look at why this is important and why we have even concerns about vaccines right now, basically what they find is every person alive basically is carrying a chemical burden inside their body of over 300 chemicals that they weren't even exposed to. A lot of these chemicals weren't even around when they were born. They're like DDT's been banned for years and years, and children are actually have DDT in their body right now. Like we have this chemical burden that hasn't existed since before World War II. And our body creates it. Our body's so intelligent, it actually creates all these things to be able to protect you, and it has something called glutathione in it. And what happens is that glutathione, what it does is it like binds to all the toxins, it gets rid of it. But because we have so many toxins right now, we exhaust our glutathione supplies. And that's why people have to do things. So like you have to eat garlic, right? Like I don't eat it, by the way, just when on days that I see patients, so you can thank me later. So I'm sacrificing myself for that. But the thing is, onions and like the cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and kale and collard greens, you got to eat your green. That's free glutathione in there. That's what produces it. You have to, like, whey protein produces glutathione in your body. I don't have, like, whey protein out there because I want you to lose weight. I have whey protein because it raises glutathione to help your body actually reduce toxins in your body and so you can actually be healthier and live longer there. Supplements like selenium and milk thistle and alpha-lipoic acid, these things are all in the daily detox. That's why we put them in there. High-intensity, short-duration exercise like surge training, like on Mondays and Wednesdays and Saturday mornings that we do here, those things all produce glutathione. Like long-term runs, like if you decide to be like a marathon runner, it destroys glutathione because it creates so much antioxidants in your body. Literally, you're aging yourself by running long distances. That's why they find that long-distance runners have shorter lifespans there. So, I'm going to go to right here. This is the big thing. So what it comes down to is this, is that when we look at our nervous system, when we look at our life, like it's your nervous system is how your body adapts to the stresses of the world. When it adapts to the stresses, what ends up happening is that you can be healthy. When there's an imbalance, you'll start to see all of these problems. It's either under-aroused or over-aroused there. And when we start looking at the endpoint is these things like cancers and chronic diseases like diabetes and fibromyalgia. We label these as something that the body did wrong, but it's not. It's something that we did wrong. And it's the nervous system allows our body to adapt, but when we have so many stresses, our body can't adapt. And so what our job is to make sure that we protect our nervous system and remove the stresses so that our body doesn't have to adapt as much and so that we can heal. And that's why when they look at it, every single time that somebody gets adjusted, the studies show that it balances out your nervous system, and that's huge. So I'm going to, where was the last one? And this is just like the last slide that I really want to go over with you guys. And this is huge. The reason why why I have people check their spines and their nervous system, the reason why I'm going to check my kids' spines and their nervous system until I literally keel over is this. These are the symptoms of an adjustment. This is like the things that happen. These are your side effects of an adjustment. This is what the studies show the side effects are. Increased ability to breathe, increased range of motion, increased heart rate variability, which means how your body adapts to the world. Increased muscle strength, increased muscle, overall athletic ability. That's the side effect of having a properly functioning nervous system. There is no side effects to having negative side effects to have a properly functioning nervous system. That's who you're supposed to be. And that's my job, is to get you back to who you should be, not who we are. And we have to work on it on a daily basis there. So I think I just wanted, this is the end of it because the kids should be coming in a second. But I just want to show you, and what I did is I took some pictures. And a lot of times I wanted to go through the top 10 causes of death real quick. And these are all patients right here. Normally we're going to have a nice smooth curve. The atlas is going to come up. This is a person that has heart disease. And then now they're dead. This is a person that had cancer, choking off their spinal cord. They're dead now. These are my patients. This is a person that had that had COPD, dead. This is a person that had we look at accidents, the number 4 leading cause of death. This guy slipped and fell because his legs couldn't hold him up, hit his head, and he ended up dying. We ended up looking at like stroke. This person ended up having a stroke. The nerves from here, the blood vessels from here go up there. Your body can't regulate the blood vessels. Okay. We look at somebody that had Alzheimer's disease. We know that when your head's caught in this position, your body can't get rid of the toxins from the brain, and the neurons in the brain break down at an accelerated rate. Yeah. Diabetes. Influenza and pneumonia, you can't mount a properly functioning immune system. When we know that when we study people that get adjusted, their immune systems are 400 times stronger than the average person that's not getting adjusted. That's just the facts there. So if you're going to have the flu, who's going to recover from the flu? Kidney disease, same thing. Suicide, this is a person that was put on like an antidepressant, and we know that the number one side effects of antidepressants is actually increased rate of suicide. And we know that right through here, if you guys remember from your doctor's report, this is where serotonin is regulated. So if you have pressure on the brainstem right there that releases serotonin, you're not going to have it. So this is what the only solution this person had. They just didn't have time. And so when I talk about this is like a life or death situation for me, yeah, it is, because everybody's a statistic unless we do something. And so that's why I'm going to ask you is to make sure that your kids know this. Like, we set standards in our houses to raise our standards. We set standards for moving toxicity. We set standards for the foods that we allow into our house. It's our choice. Unless they're buying and preparing the foods, they don't have a choice. They literally don't have a choice. You wouldn't let them eat arsenic because you know it's toxic for them. Why would we let them eat, like pizzas out of the that we take out of the freezer and stick them into the oven there? We know that it's toxic for them. We want our kids to be smart, so we have to give them the stuff to be able to be smart. We have to give them the tools. So I'm going to have these little kids come in.
I think you have more kids than adults here today.
That's good. That's how we're going to change it from
that's how we're going to change the world.
So let me tell you what's going to happen in the next generation. So we have a new group of kids. And so these children right now, they're going to be the doctors, and they're going to be the lawyers, they're going to be the politicians, they're going to be the president of the United States, whoever they might be. They're going to be the policymakers and the people that make the decisions, and the people that change the world here. And I just wanted to introduce you to all of our doctors and all of them. And I want you guys to come on over here for me. There we go. We've got to make some space here. All right. You get your shades there, Lucia? Okay, good. So you want to show us your picture? All right. Tell me what you see. Tell us about your picture there. Can I hold it up for you? What do you got there?
It's a picture of the fruits.
Do you think that we should have an apple or fruit for dinner? Fruit, that's right. Sorry, how about a donut or fruit for dinner? Yeah, that's good. All right, good job. All right. So this one probably gets an award for being like absolutely gorgeous right there. So what was the biggest thing that you learned today? Right. Why would you want to eat healthy? Super. And when you're healthy, what can you do? You can do a lot of things. All right. Did you guys have fun out there? All right. Make sure that you think or go. So let's get a picture of you guys. I want to see all of your pictures that you have up there. All right. Show them all the things. So are you guys all healthy kids? Yeah. You guys are healthy kids. Good job. Did you guys get the surge out there? Did you get the exercise?
Yes.
A little bit? Okay. Does anybody have anything that they want to share with everybody that's here that you learned? What was the best thing that they taught you guys? What you have something that you want? Oh wow! Look at that carrot. That looks like me. Oh, that's the bow tie. That is me. Oh, that's right. Because I do have my hair coming up like a carrot. Oh, that's funny, guys. What vitamins in carrots?
A.
That's right.
A.
What other questions you got? That's it? All right, guys. So I want you guys are in charge, okay? I need everybody's attention. You guys are in charge of making sure that your parents bring home healthy food, okay? Does anybody here not want to be healthy? Okay, just checking. So you're in charge of making sure your parents bring home healthy food so that you can be healthy, so that you can play best in your sports, that you don't get colds and flus this year, and then we make sure that we get them, instead of like sitting at home on our like watching TV all the time, we get out and we get outside and we play. Is that a good idea? Can we get a high five on that? Put your hands in the middle. Here we go.
Everyone yell your favorite vegetable
Okay.
on 3.
On 3, we're gonna say, be healthy. 1, 2, 3.
Be